Well, I'm Luther Kruger with the Big Blue Sun Museum of Solar Cooking, based in Minneapolis. And I'm in currently mostly sunny Cambridge, Massachusetts, with Shawn Reeves, physics teacher, physicist, physics teacher.
Yeah.
Good enough. Energy teacher, has blended solar cooking into his instruction, serves as a resource to people who want to teach physics or science with solar cooking. And so I'm so glad to be here. We've exchanged posts online on the network, on Facebook and so forth. So this is wonderful. And we'll just start off. Just the main question always is, first and foremost, how did you discover solar in any way, shape, or form, and then specifically the solar cooking?
I remember Earth Day 1990, and I was in college, and we had an exhibit of all sorts of different things people were doing on campus and off campus, and there was an instructor there who was researching solar cooking and solar power and how to make tracking devices that didn't use electricity and all sorts of things, and it just looked really interesting. But that was a very busy week, Earth Day 1990. We were also headed down to Washington, D.C. to lobby for something better than the energy strategy that was published earlier in the year. I read about it and learned slowly. And then I became a high school physics teacher, and I knew it would be a nice activity, but actually I didn't, like a lot of people, I didn't think about it as physics. I thought about it as environmentalism. And so I was teaching an environmental science class where you teach environmentalism, even though in physics you don't teach physicism. But in environmental science class, I took them on the roof of our 6-story building in Manhattan, New York. We were using cookers that my students had built. And then the administration came up on the roof and shut it down because we forgot to get permission. I kept an interest, and then eventually I moved here to the Boston area and joined the Boston Area Solar Energy Association, where I met a Brandeis professor who teaches about solar cookers, learns and teaches about very simple solar cookers and how widespread they could be if they were very simple. And he introduced me to the 3 sides of a box shape. And that's when I really got into it, when I realized I could do that, and at the same time I was starting energyteachers.org, a nonprofit 501c3 charity for teachers interested in energy production and use. So this looked like a very interesting use thing and something that could be very useful for teaching physics too. So I studied and published and studied and met more people and learned about different designs and started a collection of different designs, and I still make the first kind that I made, the 3 sides of a box and simpler box cookers. Yeah.
Great. And so you're kind of a collector like me. We'll have to compare notes.
Yeah.
Did I sent you my list?
No.
I've got 70. It's like, it's embarrassing. You're not quite. You're maybe not quite at that maniacal level.
No, I call it museum or library level.
Library.
Maybe museum. Yeah. Library is when you have just a useful amount, and then museum is when you really go with your collection.
You have too many that you can't use them all at once. That's where we're at.
Yeah, when you have archives.
Exactly. Yeah. The wing. We got the parabolic wing, the panel wing.
Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah. So that's so it's kind of a gradual thing, but at certain points you saw people actually using them to cook and took it from there. So
Yeah.
yeah. And and energyteachers.org. Describe what that does.
Well, we formed in 2004. Some other high school teachers, science teachers, and I did it. And we find and publish interesting, novel ideas for teaching about energy production and use. And whether it's teaching about solar power or nuclear power or sailing or cooking or energy is the very important central concept in physics for the past since it overtook forces in the 1850s as the central guiding idea of physics. And it's a lot of physics teachers, but it's also environmental science teachers, chemistry teachers, history teachers, librarians, because we deal with books and history and stories and poems in all the different ways learners of all ages learn about things. We can use to learn about energy and maybe be better consumers of electricity or think about how we get around transportation, but also just as a philosophical thing like physicists have been studying for over a century.
Sure. And what do you have on your website? Because you've been doing, you said 15, 20 years. I mean, you've been at it for...
Yeah. We started with the most basic resources for teachers, which are finding books, textbooks, and trade books that are interesting, and we lend them to teachers or send them to teachers or give them to teachers, and going to conferences and finding out what the teachers want, and also contracting for schools to help them with new projects, like anything from making a bicycle generator in tech class to building a section about energy in the library, to one thing I'm most proud of is going on field trips, like your trip. Field trips are very educational. It was very unfortunate. We started in 2004, and it was very unfortunate after September 11th, 2001, that a lot of power plant field trips were permanently canceled because power plants were thought of as targets, hard targets, and they still are, and so it's a lot harder to take a field trip there. But you can take a field trip to a national park or a state park or just any park and do some solar cooking while you're there. And if you bring tools like an infrared camera, you can do a lot of learning just out there in the field, and the impressions are different because it doesn't have to be in the lab in school. In fact, solar cooking usually doesn't work because schools usually don't have a sunny lab. So this is our lab out here.
They need to set up more of their roof space. That's because the sun, I mean, unless there are other buildings that are crowding it out, that's where you're going to have the sun.
Yeah. So our field trip guide covers the world. It's mostly, we started in Massachusetts, so we cover Massachusetts really well, and then New England pretty well, and we have volunteers filling in field trips around the country, and anybody around the world is welcome to add to the field trip guide, and that is according to our web data is the most impactful thing we've done. And there's only one other field trip guide out there that covers as much. It's for homeschoolers, published in New York, and I've never seen anything else like it, so we're pretty proud of that.
Hands-on. That is just so critical.
Yeah.
And and right now, of course, we're easing our way out of a pandemic. So you're doing stuff online?
Yep. It's been tough. It's been tough ever since the Great Recession, actually, because that's when we stopped getting grant funding, and a lot of donations. Um, but we're lean. We don't have any overhead, no salaried employees, and our website is free. So the things like the field trip guide can continue indefinitely. They just require volunteer time, and um, and then we slowly, without grant money, we can still slowly accumulate equipment from donations of equipment, and or just people lending something to us just for the week so we can take it to a school. You mentioned hands-on. It's not just good with the students; it's good with the teachers. I was at a Massachusetts State Teachers Association showing how to make the simplest cookers. And it was so fast and so easy, and the teacher said, "We've never seen anything like this," and it's the, the, the possibilities are so great. The possibilities for the students to take their science apparatus home and use them for the rest of their lives makes science actually useful.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there's so many inroads, but the most important thing is that everybody eats.
Yes.
And things, whether it's poetry or journalism or science education, it should help the most people as possible. And if you're helping with the things that everybody does, you're helping the most people possible. And we all eat, we all cook, or someone cooks for us.
Or just, it gets cooked.
It gets cooked.
It doesn't just happen on its own.
Yeah, we all eat. It doesn't happen on its own. So this is a really interesting field for me, and I just keep learning and studying and a little buying too. I just got a new hot pot.
The future of science education, specifically melding solar cooking into it. What do you think?
Well, it's not for everybody, and schools are really, especially here in Massachusetts, are really focusing on AP in high school science. And the standard thinking is that, well, if you're taking an AP class, you know what you're going to be doing every day of the year. And then when the AP exam is over, if you still have school, then you might do something fun like solar cooking at the end. But a few teachers are looking at starting a course with interesting questions, like, can you cook with the sun on a winter's day? And then learning enough about it to be able to answer it, and then actually trying it on a winter's day when you get there. It depends on the teacher, it depends on the school, it depends on the purposes of the course. I'm not going to say everyone should be solar cooking all the time. I see the benefit of that utopia.
Yes.
But there's other things in the world, other issues in the world that need to be solved. This solves many,
Yes.
From water pasteurization to not having to cook with gas or heat up our kitchen on a hot day. It could be wider spread. There are going to be learners and educators all over the world who haven't heard of solar cooking but will love to have heard of it once they do.
How about for promoting it? What are your tips for people who really do want to take an active role?
Well, I just find the idea of pasteurizing water wonderful. I love the idea. Was it Rose Bazile or who shared it that you could you just have to boil 4 parts water and then 1 part cold water, and then 5 parts water are pasteurized.
Sure.
You mix them together and it's still above the pasteurization temperature. Wonderful ideas about usefulness and people taking care of each other.
Sure.
I think it's another side to technology besides either sell or advance, or get to the moon. Sort of the sort of moonshot feeling we've had since the 50s, since Sputnik. there are other approaches to technology that appeal to different kinds of people.
Well, one thing that's been coming out with this tour, more so than last fall, is the idea of the community solar, where you get the Ivan Yawolniski type with the tube that will fit 4 or 5 loaves of bread at a time, every half hour cranking out a loaf of bread, or the Son of a Villager, which theoretically have 40 or 50 loaves of bread. How about we look at some of the cookers, and
Sure.
you take it where you want to go first. And
one thing I haven't really done much is the tube cooking.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a set of these because I thought some teachers will take it somewhere. But to have something so small that can make a cup of tea without any, just sitting there. If it's sunny enough, you can just leave it out without any reflectors or anything, and make a cup of tea. But with reflectors, you could make a few cups of tea for people. So even the smallest tubes can be useful for something that.
Sure.
How many people drink tea in the world? 2 billion people.
And where did you get that one? Because I've seen that before. But...
Oh yeah, this was on eBay from a Canadian company that bought them in bulk and rebranded them North American Solar Solutions, sitting in the sun. So I got a dozen of those to lend to teachers. I've tried it a couple times myself. I've had some cups of tea. I started with just my tea kettle. Get a little fried. I fried the bottom of the enamel a little, putting it in the Soul Source cooker. The professor who first taught me about the square foot cookers, the 3 sides of a box cooker, I call them, told me about how to get an oven bag to be the greenhouse. So you just put something in there, and then I started thinking, well, I want to get that reflection on the bottom, so I started looking for trivets, metal trivets with the minimal obstruction to put under there and get more sunlight onto this thing. And then I started looking for more dark pots and scoured camping stores and TJ Maxx and thrift stores. Finding dark pots. There's just all sorts of wonderful dark materials, from enameled steel to this enameled steel kettle to Japanese ceramic kettles that are dark, and hard anodized aluminum camping pots. So I collected a lot of that, and then I really got into the simple idea. If you have a large enough glass jar, you can put a can of beans inside it, or just make sure not to seal it all the way, or the jar will explode. Just having a darkened. A lot of schools have students take cans out of their recycling and just blacken them with smoke or barbecue paint, or just tempera. It doesn't have to be black, just some mostly absorbing color.
Sure.
And that in there, not fully sealed, but with the weight on the top, gives you a nice cup of tea. And it really helps to have a reflector. Look at some travel the world and cook for a family. You could use this. Somewhat simple for one person design. These can be dangerous. I often don't use them in education because I want the learners to have some freedom and not a bunch of educators yelling at them, be careful, don't put your hand there.
Exactly.
But something like this could fry your hand off.
Yeah.
With I can't put this on without a load. So here we go. I'd like to demonstrate something that I feel like I don't see enough in the world, and this can be the thing I have a Jeremy ad about.
Sure.
But it's when you want to reach in there and you're not sure you're going to fry your hand off. Why not just, if you can, turn it out of the sun, put it on, and then turn it back in the sun, and you can see, now that you have a target, you can see where the sun's going, adjust, and not have to worry about your hand being in there. There we go. Put it up. Same thing with its little buddy. Gotta be careful in there in front of those high power things. This little buddy, the Soul Source Sport. Could be better for camping if I need more room in the car for car camping. Something on, or boil water, or make something water intensive like rice. But slow cook rice is very forgiving.
Yes.
You can cook it at whatever speed you want.
Yes.
Rice, but a pressure cooker always helps because it really has minimal evaporation. There isn't any evaporative cooling until it gets up to pressure. So even if it never gets up to full pressure, and you're not pressure cooking per se, you're still preventing the evaporative cooling.
Well, you want to unbox the hot pot, or
Yeah.
should I have
Yeah, these panels, just looking at it, reminds me of the sun oven. And but look at that, it's more complicated. But nice.
It sets up nothing flat.
Look at that. So anything inside there is going to get a lot of reflection onto it, and it's all ready to go. They've already taken off the protective coating on the reflectors.
Sure. Ooh. Yes. Very good.
A manual. A nice glass lid.
The pot comes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it has a lip that goes around the inside of the inside bowl, and that has a lip on it too, so it's more stable.
Yep.
A nice dark steel enamel, and then the bottom Pyrex. Any regular oven. So
You get the greenhouse right there.
yeah. I just have to be careful never to put this on the giant parabolic.
Yeah. Yes.
Crack the glass. One reason I really do like boards like this, a design that can use rigid boards, is that they're all over, especially after an election year.
Yes.
That you can get foam core or this plastic core, or just really sturdy cardboard, and maybe double-walled cardboard just for sturdiness. And then just eat some tortilla chips.
4 or 5 bags there.
Yeah, 4 or 5 bags of tortilla chips.
You got it.
Or some more smaller snacks.
Sure.
This was a seaweed snack. And yeah, you got a solar cooker and also a nice light that you can use for videography.
You're missing that. I'm getting blinded when you're on the other.
Yeah, I do it
Which
myself.
is the point. Yes.
Yeah, I can get a nice bright view of my face there.
We've all been there. I'm there every time I solar cook. It's always someone. Oh yeah, okay, sunglasses.
Yeah, it's like being on stage.
That's it.
But it is also fun just to see people inventing, especially my students, just putting something together and putting their own design together, and then working on it again.
Sure.
Which is beautiful. It's like music, how you practice and it sounds better. Or poetry, you learn more and think more about words and meaning and sentences, and the poems become beautiful. And it's like that it's an iterative thing,
Yeah.
just like all cooks know. You learn new recipes, but you also improve the old ones.
A middle school, I think, age class in Taiwan had, I don't know if it was a contest, but they said design a solar cooker. And the one is like the Oriental fan, only set up so it's like a cone, and then they just put a little trivet in the bottom. And I know it'll cook. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's a thing of beauty to see this. And
Yeah.
you know that a kid could say, okay, I learned that from Professor Reeves or Dr. Reeves or whatever they call the teachers in, like we call him doctor in Latin America, right? Doctora, you know, the teacher. And I've got that, and I've got a PowerPoint with all the cookers I want to get that are, you know, they're classics. They're not made anymore, and that's one of them. I want to make one. Some of them are like DIY.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
so, do you have any specific projects like that where you say, let's design one?
My purposes are usually to teach about energy transfer. So all I care is that we have reflective material and selective material, like the oven bag that lets some frequencies through, or absorbing material that absorbs some or most or all frequencies of light, all wavelengths of light, and then thinking about how to measure it, analyze a system. And a solar cooker is a nice little system that's got some complicated ins and outs of energy that are fun, and that they could throw anybody off. They could throw a PhD in physics off if they don't carefully think about every surface and everything that we're exposed to. For example, right now, my skin feels kind of hot because the sun is shining on it.
But actually, over there, if I pointed my infrared camera at that blue sky over there, it would say minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit
Oh my goodness.
at the blue sky. The
Sure,
cloud
sure.
would be a little warmer. But what's happening is energy is just radiating that way from the camera, or me, or all of us, is radiating out there into space. And if there isn't a cloud above us, most of it just continues on out to space, and that piece of space gives us nothing back. It's minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little hazy today, but I can see out into space a bit, and it's minus 4. That blue sky is just not giving me much radiation. The clouds can be as hot as 60 degrees maybe, which is hot for up there where it's pretty cold up there. So Earth is radiating up to the cloud, and the cloud is bouncing some of it back to us. And the Earth, of course, today is anywhere from 80 to 100, depending on if you're talking about rocks and asphalt or trees and grass. The trees and grass are nice and cool. So just seeing the world through, say, a solar cooking pot's eyes is an interesting.
Seeing, if you were in a parabolic, you could look in all these different directions, and all you see is the sun. So that's a hot world. You can look in this and see up to 7 suns in the reflection of this 3 sides of a box cooker. If you look in, you could look at each of the sides and see one reflection, and then you could see sometimes the sun bouncing off of 2 sides. And you have 3 cases of that with the 3 corners there.
Sun coming from the reflectors in 6 different ways, and then you see the sun directly. So just this simple reflector, 7 suns. If the reflectors were perfect, it would be 7 suns, but some of it doesn't make it through the materials. But you can have more complicated reflectors, shapes of reflectors, and see a lot of sun.
Oh yeah.
On if you get a little target and a big reflector.
Sure.
Well, it can be these cameras also can be a Kokopelli trickster, because they exchange radiation back and forth between things. But if you look at something that's reflective, like this glass is reflective, in infrared. In the infrared that affects this camera. So if I look at this glass with this camera, I don't get the temperature of the glass. I get the temperature of whatever's behind me. Because I can take this camera and take a picture of myself in a glass. So it's fun. I like to think about camping all the time. So when I have the solar, it reminds me of taking them camping, because I always love the outdoors and going out west mostly and going camping and feeling a little self-sufficient, even though I had to get there in some car that somebody else designed and a national park that we all collectively paid for. But being there in the mountains, so far away from the nearest electric pole or telephone pole or gas line, and being able to cook and thinking, gee, I could stay here all year and never have to go into town for gas or collect wood or anything. The sun's going to be here, and I'll just have leftovers on the cloudy days.
Sure. Yeah. Well, great. Anything else we should look at? Maybe we should get a shot of the sun oven. And so we got something going in there already?
I don't have something going, but we can do the old look at the temperature thing.
Sure.
You can tell I don't use it much because it doesn't look very worn out. They can get rust coming out of the rivets. At least this model from the mid-2000s. You could make a new rubber gasket if you had to. You could cut a piece of tempered glass. It's just a square piece of glass if you had to. I haven't been keeping up with the sun, where the sun is in the sky, but it's still 300 degrees in there. But obviously for a light load like baking cookies, easy peasy. So I want to know how best to clean the reflectors, and sometimes I get a little aluminum rust spots on it. I want to figure out how to polish that. That's the only problem. Well, Boston, Cambridge, this area, this metropolitan area is the windiest city in America.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Just because of the way the ocean is, it's worse than Lake Michigan on Chicago.
Wow, no kidding.
The average wind speed here is higher than in Chicago. And so whenever you have something like this, you want to stabilize it. The way I do it here in the backyard is I put a chair right there, perfect. Let's find something like that. But weights, it'd be nice to have, that extra weight on the bottom.
Sure.
One time I was demonstrating at Boston City Hall, in the plaza in front of the City Hall, which is this grand plaza, much larger footprint than the City Hall itself. And I had a 10 by 10 tent, and boy, in the middle of the day, the wind just came up and blew across and blew my cooker off the table, and ramen all over the place, ramen emergency. I was cooking ramen because I didn't know what the weather would be, and it's the easiest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couscous and ramen
Yes.
are your starter solar cooker meals. Just some couscous or ramen and spices, and you're good to go. And then you're ready to graduate to the first grade of solar cooking, which is rice and beans.
Yes.
And then when you know your temperatures, then you can move on to the things you need more food safety about, like meat,
Sure.
dairy, and
Yeah.
I tell the kids, stay out of the same temperature as us, because
Yeah.
if you put food that's the same temperature as us and things thrive on it, those are the things that can thrive on us.
Yes.
So,
Good
so,
point.
So make your cooker powerful enough so that you can push through that, say, 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, where things grow that grow in us.
Yeah.
If they can handle our 96 Fahrenheit, then they can handle those temperatures. And you get past that as quickly as possible. And then when you really, if you really need or canning or whatever, then you need much higher temperatures. If you have meat, of course, or dairy, you want to get above pasteurization temperature.
This is fantastic, and I mean, just a cool, concise summary of the physics and so forth, and get them when they're young. Make sure they understand. Yes, you can use that. Paul Arvison, the hot pot solar household energy guy, he says it's the original wireless energy.
Yeah.
There's no, you don't need a pipeline. You don't need to worry about if the pipeline breaks. You know.
Yep. Yep. No one's gonna cyber attack the sun. The Dr. Knows of the world.
Yeah.
Blocking the sun from us or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody else loves it, but I love my collection of used foils from burritos, where you get foil, to all the delicious different snacks that come in very
Yes.
highly reflective materials. These olive oil crackers, so delicious. Trader Joe's popcorn, more burritos. It's kind of like looking back. It's like a food journal of my life. Chocolate. What could be better than the fact that chocolate comes in a reflective material? I mean, it's a cook's dream. Honey peanuts come in reflective material. Potato chips. All these different things. This gold-colored reflective material. It's better for infrared, but worse for visible light. What does that mean for your cooker? Is it going to be better? Because your cooker may use infrared and visible. It could use near infrared that comes from the sun, or it could use the visible light that comes from the sun. Maybe the visible light is more important than infrared light for your cooker. It depends on your greenhouse. Oh, tortilla chips. An ice cream bar, a chocolate almond covered ice cream bar. It's hot, it's the summer, you have to solar cook outside. Why not first have an ice cream bar? Support your local dairy farmers. This is a few solar cookers right here that I can make after having to force myself to enjoy all those foods. I would like to tour the country, try all the different packaged barbecue chips, and see which ones have reflective bags and recommend those.
Sure. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order, as they say?
Some people down the street at the beginning of the pandemic were getting their food delivered.
Yep.
They were getting dairy delivered to them, so they were getting these. So I thought I was going to get 100 of these, but I think they figured out pretty soon that they didn't want to make that much waste.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
Yep, time for another glass of water. Sun chips, fig bars, chocolate, delicious chocolate, expensive, but then I have a cooker that will last forever. Pirate's booty. Some unlabeled dreams. So many peanuts. You get peanuts and they come in a reflective material. Mixed nuts come in a reflective material. Pop-Tarts come in a reflective material. Have some pop chips. They come in a wonderfully large reflective bag.